There was an era when Americans always traveled by rail. But as the passenger train fell on hard times, a handful of folks with bold political support found a way forward. As 20 different railroads discontinued their passenger service, that team of visionaries somehow built a unified national network from the pieces. And on May 1st, 1971, Amtrak went into service. Back then, we didn't have the best locomotives or state-of-the-art equipment, but we had incredible people. They got to work renewing our fleet, expanding service with state partners, and bringing high-speed rail to America. A lot has changed in 50 years, but the things that matter most haven't. Today, our dedicated employees are leading us into the next 50 years, setting ambitious sustainability goals, rolling out sleek new locomotives, and extending access to new communities. Our future was never guaranteed, and many expected us to fail. But at the heart of Amtrak, there's always been great people. People who believe in staying connected to faraway places, to our history, to what's next, and to each other. That's why the future rides with us.
Hello everyone. So we're now on to the live Amtrak discussion section of the evening, and I'll soon be joined by Matt Donnelly, who is Amtrak's brand specialist. For 50 years, Amtrak has connected America and transformed transportation by modernizing the train travel and building for the future. A true institution of American railroads, Amtrak will be talking about their 50th anniversary and their plans during this live discussion. So, hello, Matt, when you turn up.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me. I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. So, should we just jump straight into the questions and get these answers out to everyone?
Sounds like a plan to me.
Yeah. So, the first question we've got is, how and when did Amtrak begin its 50-year journey?
Well, it's an interesting story. So in 1970, there was an act of Congress that created a national rail carrier, which became known as Amtrak. And it was May 1st of 1971 when the first train ran. So it was created basically around 20 private railroads that no longer wanted to transport people. And so our government felt it was still an important part of transportation infrastructure to provide passenger rail, and created Amtrak so those railroads could focus solely on freight instead of both passenger and freight.
Yeah. And so how have Amtrak's trains changed over the years?
So in the early days, with the creation of Amtrak, it was kind of hectic. All those, most of those railroads, not all of them, but they essentially gave equipment to Amtrak. And when you're thinking of that, I mean, it was in all sorts of different conditions. It's all different types. And all of a sudden, I think it was about 12 railroads that donated or, gave equipment to Amtrak. So you've got this hodgepodge fleet, different cars with different configurations on the interior. They were all painted on the exterior in predecessor road colors. I mean, there was no time or money to paint them into an Amtrak paint scheme. So it was kind of wild. And as time went on, Amtrak was able to invest in interior upgrades and putting on a paint scheme and creating its own identity. But it took a while, at least a year before that came to be. At the creation, a lot of people that were involved with the company were very frank about it. No one thought Amtrak was going to make it more than a few years. They figured, the passenger train's on its way out. Airplanes in the interstate highway system is in. And this thing's just going to kind of die off on its own. And surprise, here we are 50 years later, And I would be very interesting if, the founding members of Amtrak were able to be around it to see that. I think they'd be quite surprised, and we're really proud of that.
I mean, even I've traveled Amtrak when I visited America, so it's awesome.
That's
It's
awesome.
awesome that it's been around for so long. I must say, apparently the plush that is behind you is being admired quite nicely by everybody in the chat. So I think everybody's going to want one of those.
and they are more than welcome. We encourage that. Go to store.amtrak.com. They are available for sale with a lot of other cool stuff as well.
Oh, there you go then. That's how to get your own. So, what does the half century mean for Amtrak as a US brand?
So it's historic, I think, not only just for Amtrak and as a brand, but also for the United States of America as part of American history. It's really a testament that the company, again, created kind of, no one really thought it would survive. Not only survive, but in my opinion, has thrived. We've grown service. We've got high-speed trains. It's really a testament to those who have dedicated their lives and their careers to making a go of it in the face of adversity. It's a really good underdog story, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
It's amazing, isn't it? Like, honestly, I'm a bit in awe actually that everybody thought it was going to die, and it's managed 50 years. It's really remarkable. And so, what does the half century mean for the passengers as well then? Because not just the brand.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. It's an option to travel across the country. For many people, it is sometimes their only option of public transportation. And we've been making strides over the 50 years to be more efficient, to be safer, and to be greener. And we've got a lot of things underway now that are going to really exciting time in the future, be rolling out with new equipment, new trains, and hopefully new routes. So I think it's a very exciting time.
Yeah, definitely. And so what does Amtrak mean to rail fans? What do your rail fans mean to Amtrak? What's that relationship like?
That's a great question. I think, rail fans are often our biggest supporters. They're our biggest fans. Sometimes they're our biggest critics. And that's important too. Some honest feedback is always a good thing. And we value their input. And I think as far as, what Amtrak means to rail fans, hopefully that, there's a sense of pride. Amtrak is the National Railroad Passenger Corporation here in America. And if it weren't for America, the passenger train as we knew it wouldn't exist in this country, at least in the fashion that we have it today. So I think hopefully it's viewed as important. I know a lot of times people like to remember, the years prior to Amtrak with a lot of fondness, but at the end of the day, those railroads wanted out. And Amtrak was the answer to that. So we're happy to be that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so obviously 50 years, huge milestone. How are Amtrak celebrating the 50 years? What are you doing? What have you got planned?
Yeah, well, that's a great question because COVID-19 obviously has rocked everybody's world. And
yes.
Anyone that remembers our 40th anniversary, we were able to do an exhibit train, and we hosted events at different stations around the country and locations. And it was a really good thing to be able to reach out to communities all over the place for people to come out and experience, a living piece of history like that. But given social distancing and so much uncertainty with being able to plan large scale events, we've been able to do a couple things to still celebrate the milestone. And one of those we recently launched is our 50th anniversary website. So if you haven't seen that yet, it's amtrak.com/50th-anniversary. And that's got a lot of really neat stuff on there with different photos on the timeline to show the equipment and where we've been, a lot of the different achievements over the years, our innovations, and also stories from employees over the different years to get their perspective which to me is one of my favorite parts, right? It's kind of like I have my own insight having been at Amtrak for the past 16 years, but I've often wondered, well, what was it like, prior to me and my time, and hearing stories from people that have lived it. It's cool. And now those are available to be shared with everyone. As I mentioned, the Amtrak store, the merchandise, I don't know if you guys can see my shirt. Maybe I'll move a little bit. You can see we've got a whole bunch of different merch. This is a shirt showing the one-off locomotive that was painted for the first day of operations. And we've got a bunch of other 50th anniversary specific merchandise on there as well. And we're also planning, which a lot of rail fans have responded very positively to, is 6 different heritage schemes on different locomotives, some of which have never been done. So one of them is a direct copy of the scheme on my shirt, which will be hopefully coming out before the end of the month, at least from the factory. And then it's got to go through testing before they're able to put it into revenue service. But we've got several other really cool liveries as well going to be rolling out. And it's our way and our idea of being able to share something cool with everybody in the event, we're not able to have any of these large scale events and gatherings, even, throughout the rest of the year, because it's just really hard to plan that,
Yeah. So it's nice that even though it might not be what you'd initially planned, that you are able to still celebrate it so wonderfully.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. I think it's a good compromise, given where we're at this day and age. It would have been wonderful to, I think, have, different excursions like we've done in the past with Train Day, and have people come down to the station and see the locomotives and interact with employees. But it's definitely nothing that we'll be able to do anytime soon, if we're able to ever do it at all. So that's at least a sure thing. Having locomotives be at the forefront of our trains all over the country, hopefully you'll be able to see it. People will be able to follow it, online, and be able to figure out when they're coming through their communities. One of the questions, I don't know if you're aware of or heard of, but we're doing a phase 3-8 scheme, which was only on the -8 locomotive fleet. And there was about 20 of those. And they only existed for maybe about 15 years or so in that livery. And so we're putting that livery on one of our current P42 locomotives, simply because given that we're publicly funded, we were able to use the existing budgets allocated for locomotive overhauls, and we were able to do that without having to spend a lot of or any extra money really on doing something special. So it's kind of a neat adaptation, and the unfortunately the -8s themselves are getting near the end of their life on the active fleet roster, and even if you were to see one, it wouldn't be at the front of a train. So putting one on that livery on a P42 gives people the opportunity to actually see it, out and about on the rails.
And that's going to look awesome.
Thanks. I think so too. I'm really excited to see all of them. And we've had one right out now. It's the 46. It's been out for a little while, but the next one will be locomotive number 100, wearing what we call the midnight blue livery, which has never been done. It was something we created specially just for the 50th anniversary. So that will be rolling out of our Beech Grove facility next.
Wow. And so I guess, what do you think's next? What do you think's coming next for the next 50 years for Amtrak and its passengers? Because what do you think the future is going to look like?
Hopefully onward and upward, right? I know we've got new ALC 42 Charger locomotives that are the first one, number 300, and number 301 is in the special scheme like on my shirt. Those will be rolling out hopefully within about the next month or so. So once they go into service, they will be on the national network, and they're a Tier 4 compliance locomotive, so a lot greener and more fuel efficient. And we're hoping that that'll be a positive for people, and not only just rail fans, but our passengers. And anyone in the United States is breathing cleaner air, right? So as well as a new generation of Acela high-speed trains in the Northeast Corridor are undergoing testing now. So that'll be really cool once they go into service. And we also recently published a map of an idea for expanded service, which is AmtrakConnectsUs.com. So if people aren't familiar with that, they can check out that website and look at our vision for, the next 15 years or so to be able to expand passenger rail. So I think a lot of opportunity lies ahead of us and a lot of improvement and exciting times as we especially start to emerge from all the lockdowns associated with COVID. Hopefully the world will be back on its path to some sort of normalcy soon.
Yeah, and I guess when we're talking COVID, why should people be encouraged to travel again? How are we encouraging them? What reasons have they got to go on the trains?
Well, I think just in general, it's one of those things where people are looking to, this is my opinion, of course, get out.
Oh yes, of
Everyone's
course.
been working from home. They haven't been able to connect with family and friends, and that's what Amtrak's all about, is connecting America. So I think when people are ready and able, we're ready for them, and we're excited to have them back.
That's lovely. That's lovely. And so one of the questions from the chat is actually what is the fastest Amtrak train? Do you know? And how fast is it if you
Yes.
know?
Well, the fastest Amtrak train that anyone can ride on is our Acela, and that goes 150 miles per hour, and it operates in the Northeast Corridor. So that is there's been other trains in testing that have gone faster, but as far as a regularly scheduled service, it's Acela. Great question.
And which of your rolling stock and equipment do you think draws the most attention? Which one are people desperate to see?
I think it's typically our celebratory schemes, whether it's, we have some Amtrak celebrates our veterans schemes, which are very patriotic, red, white, and blue livery. So we have a few of those locomotives. Those always turn heads and are ones that our fans are looking to find and see. We've done some promotional wraps before. One of my projects before the pandemic was a partnership with Coca-Cola. We serve Coca-Cola products on board our trains, and when we started that, we wrapped one of our ACS 64 electrics with the Coke Polar Bear, and we made the locomotive all Coke red. So that was super popular when it came out. People were trying to see it or get a picture of it and track where it goes. And then of course our other what we call heritage locomotives, which were done for the 40th anniversary, and now building off of that with the ones going to be rolling out for the 50th. Those will likely be the stars of the show.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to be looking them up myself as well, because I'm so curious to see the Coca-Cola one now.
It was number 606.
606. I'm going to write this down.
So yeah, if you look up Amtrak 606 and Coke, I'm sure there will be plenty of videos and photos to check out for anyone that wasn't aware of it. It was only around for a few months, but it definitely got plenty of publicity.
That's awesome. And so, how proud of your stations are Amtrak? So, what do you do to make them accommodating and appealing to passengers?
That's a great one. We have stations of all sizes and types, everything from basically a shelter, in smaller communities where it doesn't, have the ridership or the support for a larger station, all the way on up to, some very large and grand stations. One of my favorites as far as the architecture is Cincinnati Union Terminal. That is just a gorgeous building. If you've never been there, Los Angeles is another one, San Diego, and of course, Washington, D.C. and New York, Penn Station, Moynihan Station across the street just opened up at the beginning of the year. I haven't had the chance, unfortunately yet, to get up there and visit it myself, but I've seen plenty of photos, and there's lots of videos online of that. It's just magnificent, restoring the beauty of what once was there in that station. So I think you said one of the benefits too, we look to, make our stations ADA compliant for those with accessibility needs. And we're always looking to do stuff better. And many times, a lot of people are surprised to find out we don't own all of our stations. Sometimes individuals own them. Sometimes the freight railroads own them. Sometimes the towns and cities own them. There's a a lot of partnerships that go on to be able to work with the entities that are involved with the stations, and when it's not just a solely Amtrak-owned building, to make improvements and make them better. But that's definitely something we're always looking at to make improvements on.
Yeah. And so one of the questions from the community is, I doubt you will have an exact number, but how many people use Amtrak in a year, roughly?
Well, this past year's been really low, but it's been in the low 30 millions, people. So I think it was, don't quote me, I'm sure it was around 31, 32 million. We were growing quite steadily, unfortunately, until the pandemic kind of killed the entire transportation world all over the globe. But we're looking forward to topping that number and continuously topping that, and moving forward with being a very relevant choice of transportation.
Do you find yourself using Amtrak personally quite often?
Oh, yeah. In normal times, every day, I usually take an Amtrak train to get into work. And then also in my free time, I've gone with my family and friends on different routes. And one of my former roles at Amtrak, I was an auditor. And I was very fortunate to travel almost every single route. So I've seen the best of the best, and I definitely take that opportunity to travel on some of those routes where I've seen before. And I want to go back to that location, whether it was like Glenwood Springs, Colorado is fantastic. It's like, that's a spot I want to go on vacation at, and did whitewater rafting. And then the river goes right along with the train tracks next to it. And I actually saw the California Zephyr from my raft, which was way cool, because I saw people rafting when I was on the train, and to have that different perspective was really neat. But yeah, there's another favorite is Glacier National Park. That's on my bucket list to get out that way. I've been through it on the train, but I'm like, yeah, I need to spend some time out that way. There's a lot of great spots.
That is wonderful. So thank you so much for taking the time to answer all those questions for me. And thank you for answering so many of the community's questions. We're about done here. So I just want to say best of luck with the 50-year celebrations. And yeah, just thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you to you, and also to all the fans for tuning in and following Amtrak. We've got a lot of exciting things on the way, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you out there on the rails soon.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
When thinking of Amtrak, most people picture a train. Over the past 50 years, we've had many different types of trains to help us connect America. And similar to how fashion trends and style trends change over those years, so has the look of our trains. I'm Matt Donnelly of Amtrak's marketing department, here to explore the evolution of Amtrak paint schemes. In 1970, Amtrak was created by an act of Congress as the National Railroad Passenger Corporation. We took over the operation of passenger train service on May 1st, 1971, from 20 private railroads that no longer wanted to transport people. Many railroads participating in this arrangement gave their equipment, such as passenger cars and locomotives, to the newly formed Amtrak. While there was a logo ready at the start, there was no time or money for the trains to be painted into a common paint scheme, also called the livery. For the first day of operations, E8 locomotive number 4316 received a one-of-a-kind livery for a press event. It wore this unique paint for about a year, making it a short-lived but significant part of Amtrak's history. It was common to see a broad range of predecessor colors throughout our trains in the early days due to the mixing and matching of inherited equipment. It took several years before our trains could be removed from service for painting, making it easy to see why this period is referred to as the Rainbow Era. It wasn't until 1972 that the first full Amtrak livery started to appear, giving Amtrak's trains their own true identity. Back then, there wasn't a need for a livery nomenclature, and it was model railroaders that started identifying Amtrak's liveries as phases. Amtrak adopted this style of nomenclature and calls this livery Phase 1. It features silver passenger cars with large red and blue stripes flanked by white pinstripes through the window band. A white field toward the end of the car held the Amtrak Arrow logo. Locomotives were mostly silver with a black roof and underbody, bold Amtrak red nose for increased visibility, and a large Amtrak arrow on each side. This livery earned the nickname of the Bloody Nose due to the bright red front of each train. Adaptation to the form factor it resided on was sometimes necessary, as was the case with the RTG turboliner. Its stripes were set low below the windows, and the lack of a red nose set the transition for the next phase. Introduced in 1975, Phase 2 was a subtle refinement of the passenger car Phase 1 livery, eliminating the arrow logo that sometimes had to be abbreviated depending upon where the windows fell on the cars. Locomotives saw a more noticeable change, dropping the red nose and gaining stripes matching the cars. The stripes used then-new retroreflective technology to increase safety, and the arrow logo was now absent from the livery altogether. Overall, these changes made for a more connected look throughout the train. The Phase 3 livery first debuted in 1976 on the Roar turboliners. This livery has seen numerous variations and adaptations, with a reincarnation in 2015 on the new Viewliner 2 fleet. The LRC train and the AM7 locomotives wore similar variants, with a large low-slung blue field. The classic and most common styling of Phase 3 was internally known as the 888 for its equal 8-inch tall stripes of red, white, and blue. A common theme of Phase 3 is having a more equal representation of red, white, and blue in the striping than on previous liveries. The most unique adaptation came in 1991 on the Dash 8, a rather large and boxy freight locomotive adapted for passenger service. Its award-winning paint scheme was styled to fit its utilitarian body in a bold way, earning it the fan nickname based on a popular cola can from the era. This marked the first time in Amtrak's history that the main Amtrak red and blue colors were changed to what we call Amtrak Deep Red and Deep Blue. These new colors continued onto the Genesis locomotive variants of Phase 3. The first appearance of Phase 4 came in 1993 with the new Superliner 2 car fleet, resulting in a period of overlap with the Genesis variant of Phase 3. Phase 4 shares the same Amtrak Deep Red and Deep Blue colors that debuted on the Dash 8 locomotives, applied in a stripe pattern inspired by the American flag. Locomotives gained a larger presence of silver than ever before, with silver trucks, underbodies, nose, and cab areas. This is known as the intercity variant and was most common. A Northeast Corridor variant with gray extending off the roof further onto the sides and nose was applied to some P-42s and P-32 ACDM locomotives. Phase 5 debuted in 2000 on the first generation Acela trains. This marked the introduction of a new color palette with a new primary Amtrak blue color and the reintroduction of original Amtrak red. A host of new accent colors were added, originally used in specific combinations to denote the class of service or function of the car. For example, green was used on food service cars, and dark blue was used on business class cars. This livery soon became common on locomotives like the P-42, but it was short-lived on conventional passenger cars. Amfleet 1 cars were the most common type to receive the livery before the next evolution, but was also found on express box cars, and the RTL3 turboliner train sets. In 2002, the Phase 6 livery was introduced on passenger cars, but has only recently been developed for locomotives. The standard look of our trains for a long period was Phase 5 locomotives with Phase 6 cars. The Phase 6 passenger car livery was based on an update to the Phase 4 livery, adopting the newer color palette, car lettering font, and travel mark logo introduced in 2000. A locomotive variant was announced in 2020 for the first new ALC 42 Charger locomotives expected later in 2021. Amtrak Blue is the primary color, with Amtrak Red used in a more prominent way on the front and dark blue on the roof. The Phase 6 Chargers will also feature a nod to Amtrak's history, with a component of the old Arrow logo and a section of silver toward the rear. Over the years, other Amtrak liveries have been created that don't classify as a phase. These include service-specific liveries, providing a more regionalized distinction for routes like the Pacific Surfliner, Amtrak Cascades, and Amtrak Midwest. The new Acela 2 livery on the next generation train sets shares the primary Amtrak color palette, but introduces new elements like geometric patterns that differentiate the service. Our work train equipment gets high visibility colors like bold lime, and we've also developed celebratory and commemorative liveries like those on our veterans locomotives. This unique midnight blue livery celebrates our employees who keep passengers moving across the nation all throughout the night as part of our 50th anniversary celebration. It will be rolling across the system soon, along with 5 other specially painted locomotives. The most historically significant will be brand new ALC 42 Charger number 301, currently under construction, and will wear the Day 1 livery. The new Chargers will be numbered starting at 300, and road number 301 was chosen specifically to wear this livery because of it being a one-of-a-kind created for Day 1 of operations. It's expected to be delivered later this year and enter revenue service on our national network after testing is complete in the Northeast Corridor. With new Charger locomotives arriving soon and the planned replacement for the Amfleet 1 cars, the opportunity for a new, comprehensive, and forward-looking livery is upon us. Here's a sneak peek at what will be Phase 7, bringing a greater sense of modernity and cohesion throughout our trains with efficiency, safety, and wearability in mind. Thanks for joining me in this review of Amtrak's paint schemes. We're looking forward to what's to come in the future.